Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Thank you very much. My name is Norm, and I'm an alcoholic. And I am extremely happy and grateful for having the opportunity to be down here and participate in this Alanon function, convention. It's a first for me. I've never participated in an Alanon convention. I've attended many Alanon meetings and participated in a few, but in California they really don't want you messing around in the Alanon program. And I'm happy that Russ and that Betty and the committee asked us to come down. We've had a tremendous time, and we appreciate the hospitality that's been shown us since we've been here. Also, I want to take this opportunity to welcome all of the new people that may be here this afternoon for your first 30 or 60 days in Alcoholics Anonymous. I understand that we do have a few new people here, and being new, if you will, I try to keep an open mind of what you can use, why take it with you, and if you can't use it, kick another chair and leave it there. I'm sure there's some other meetings here in the southern part of Texas where you can get out and get to these meetings before you make any decisions about the program, Alcoholics Anonymous, or this meeting in general. Also, being new, I'm sure you're going through the same thing I did. You're now realizing you've associated yourself with one of the most unpopular fellowships in the world. Nobody begins his life wanting to become an alcoholic and a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, because frankly there's not a hell of a lot of class to being an alcoholic and a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. There's absolutely no status connected to it, and we don't issue out pins that identify you as a 32nd degree alcoholic. You know, you've got the opportunity to run around the city and show everybody your pin. You got a pin, you know, and the city's absolutely amazed and delighted and happy that you work like hell to make AA. Well, that isn't what it's all about. Matter of fact, the alcoholic resists this program right down to the bitter end, as I did, and I'm sure if you're new, you did too. You know, because why should you go to AA? You're not an alcoholic. The week before I came to the program, I was a heavy drinker and a victim of unusual circumstances and rotten drivers, but I sure as hell wasn't an alcoholic, and I ain't going to AA. So, and we do everything rather than to get here. We change environments and jobs and wives and go to jail, and some alkies prefer to die than to come to AA. Man, I'd rather die than go to AA. He dies, you know. I'll tell you, I ain't going to them rotten meetings, and man, he never does. And that's about exactly about, you know, how unpopular Alcoholics Anonymous is. But few of us, we just can't handle it out there any longer, and we surrender, and we come to the program, and we become a survivor. And the alcoholics that are here today, why, we're the survivors, and being a survivor is a hell of a deal. You find out a lot of things, as I did. You find out you never have to take another drink again if you don't want to. You find a group of people who are going to know most everything about you. You will still accept you, who are not necessarily interested in where you've been or where you're trying to go, but they're awfully interested in what you are doing as an individual this day. And if you want help, you got it. The people told me, if you need some help, give me a call. They said, call me before you take the drink. They called it the nickel therapy. He said, all you got to do, man, is put the money in the telephone and make the call, and I'll be there to see you. And I put the nickels in the phones when I first came in, and I suggested you give it a shot if you're new, because they'll never turn you down. They came down to see me, and people that I didn't know, and people that didn't want anything from me, and they didn't sit there with that pity and that hate that I've been used to all my life, but they sat there with compassion, with understanding. They were guys from AA, and that's got to be the best deal I ever had in my life. And I'm a guy that looked half the world out there trying to find the best deal. You see, I never found it. Not until I approached this program and was surrounded by this marvelous group of people that would call themselves Alcoholics Anonymous. So if you're fairly new to this program, give yourself a break and buy the package. It's available to you here, and I'm sure if you will, the day's going to come in your life when you too can say without any reservation whatsoever, it's the best deal you ever had. In qualification of that beginning statement I made, I'm an alcoholic. I'm not by any stretch of the imagination an authority or a consultant on the program Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm an example, good or bad, that AA works. That it has been necessary for me to take a drink, steal anything, and go to jail now for 5 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, and 25 years. I thought that up coming down on the plane. I really didn't think anybody'd be impressed, but I am, obviously, or I never brought it up. And I've been talking about it for years. You never know. Hell, we may get a pension program going here in AA, you know. And by God, if we do, I want to get credit for all my time, you see. But if you're sitting out there and you're pretty new to the program, well, this is an insurmountable thing. People talking about sobriety, long terms of sobriety. Hell, when you're new, a long term of sobriety is anybody hasn't had any booze for 6, 7 months. That's a long, long time. And you've heard Russell talk 4.5 years plus, maybe 5 years, and I'm talking about a few years myself, and these things are an overwhelming thing to people who are new, and I can still relate to that. It has been that long ago that I can't remember sitting at that first AA meeting. I was 29 years old, and if you're trying to calculate it, I'm 54. And I'm sitting there at that meeting, and a guy stood up in front of the meeting, and he said, I haven't found it necessary to take a drink, steal anything, go to jail now for 9.5 years, and I almost fell out of the chair. I thought, 9.5 years? Jesus, that guy's the biggest liar I've ever heard. Well, how could a guy function for 9.5 years and he don't drink? Now, how can you make it out there in that rotten street and deal with all them lousy people and meet your responsibilities and be honest and you don't drink? And he hadn't had a hooker now in 9.5 years, and that is a drink where I come from, incidentally. And I'm sure he wasn't practicing total abstinence. But anyway, this thing it overpowered me. I thought, well, 9.5 years, man. I didn't come to AA for 9.5 years. I came to AA for a little while. I had a lot of heat on out there in the street, and I wanted to get that heat off, and I wanted to kind of regroup. I wanted to find some way to drink a little booze and not hurt myself any longer, but I didn't want to take the next 9.5 years to do it because, boy, I had a lot to do, and I didn't have that much time, and I was concerned about my friends, and what'll they do? I'm not there to guide them through life. They'll die out there, and I built this thing out of proportion, and the only saving factor was that I kept going to meetings, and I've kept going to meetings ever since. Because by going to meetings, I find the answer to living to life of the pursuit of happiness and sobriety. In the beginning, I found out it wasn't a 9.5-year program, that the program was just right now. And it has come back to me more so in the last 15 months than it has probably in the last 20, 25 years. That it really is, it's right now, and that's what it's all about. Being able to take care of this moment for what it is, and getting all of it I can right now. And if I take care of the right now portion of my life, I stand a damn good chance that the day is going to take care of itself. And will the day come the week, then the month and the year, and before you know it, why, 25 years have run by, and it went that fast. It really seems like yesterday I'm sitting there in those early AA meetings wondering why I'm there, because, as I mentioned, I'm not overjoyed over the fact that I'm an alcoholic. I thought, Jesus, of all the things it could have been, why am I an alkie? I come from a family of heavy drinkers. Everybody in my family drinks. I'm the only alcoholic in the whole rotten family. I thought, geez, why have I been given that cross to carry when I'm the best they produced? There was no question about that. As an alcoholic, you talk to yourself from time to time, and what does self tell you? You're good, man, are you? Yeah, you're the best today. Well, why is it then that you've got this alcoholism and nobody else in your family has got it? And I thought it's my family's fault. Why, sure, Irish, Italian, what else? Born in L.A., I had a lot of things going against me. The environment created it, my nationality created it. Well, none of this is true, and you know it and I know it. The people, places, and things didn't create all of that problem. Irish, Italian, what's that going to get you? You're not too bright and you talk with your hands. Other than that, and L.A. is a city, and that's all it is. And you know and I know you can get out anywhere you want to get out of. If you want to get out of it bad enough and you're willing to make the sacrifices to do it or to get it, and I know that. No, I am alcoholic, and I figured this out by myself. It was a giant decision because I drank too much. And I thought, yeah, that's it. It was the whiskey I consumed out there created the problem, and I'm the guy that drank the whiskey, so it brings it right on down to where it ought to be. I created the problem. I'm the biggest enemy I ever had, and that hasn't changed up to and including today, because no matter where I go, I'm the first guy to get there. And nobody gets there before I do. If it's going to get hacked up, I'll take care of it. No, I've never needed any assistance. I've been able to get that thing all going out there. I'm the guy that overreacts to life and to living. I never bought living on living's terms. I've always wanted it my way. I've created the problem. I am the rationalizer, the justifier, the compromiser, and I got the rotten attitude. And you don't need any more when you get right down to that. I had all those qualifications before I ever took a drink. Traveled half the world in half my life and made a complete ass of myself. Spent money I didn't have, buying things I didn't need, trying to impress people I didn't like. sat around in them gin mills night after night and drove them Cadillacs up and down the bar night after night, you know, yeah. Talked in millions, spent in thousands, and wondered where the poor people were, because all the big money was there, you know. I didn't have a dollar in my pocket, yeah. I spent a lot of time out there seeing a lot of people I never met in my life to tell them I'm something I'm not. And I came to the program and I found out I didn't have to function that way any longer. I got to AA and the people said, man, you don't have to live that way any longer. All you got to be in AA, buddy, is be yourself. That's all we ask. Don't impress us. We've been impressed by experts in AA. And the reason being that everybody in AA is an expert. I'm sure you don't have that problem in Texas, but we do in LA. No matter who you talk to, and no matter what you're talking about, if he's an alcoholic, he's going to comment on it one way or another. If I don't know what you're talking about, I'll generally say, that's true, you know, and you go on. I thought I'd lay a little on a guy one night I'm new, and I said, I've been in the can about 25 times. He said, the hell yeah, son, I did that in a year. You know, right away you find out no matter where you've been, there's guys that got there long before you did. So if you're kind of new to the program, if you will, well, come on in and get a hold of it. Grab that package and take it out there tomorrow on that city street and spend a day out there being yourself. And if I don't get any more than that in the sobriety I've enjoyed here, hell, I'm overpaid, because I've been able to spend a lot of days out there on that city street, and all I've had to be is me. I haven't had to justify my existence or compromise my life if I didn't wish to. I just was being myself. It's an experience no alcoholic should be without. As to what I was like, I told you a great deal. I'm that attitude problem. I've had an attitude problem all my life. My bad attitude got me in a lot of trouble. I went to jail the first time in 1939 because I had a bad attitude. I wasn't drinking in 39, I was stealing. Because I happen to be a thief by trade. I'm an alcoholic by absorption. I suppose that's the way you put it down. Vice President, General Manager of all the outside operations of the Midnight Auto Supply of the San Gabriel Valley. Our business was car business, man. We popped them hubcaps, stole them radios. Then it got to be a job to gather up all that junk. We just stole cars. And, you know, the business really got out and went. And I enjoyed every loving minute of it. But kind of cut for it, you know, never had any conscience. I felt if you're jerky enough to put your car out there, man, you're asking for trouble, you see. But unfortunately, it's illegal. And, you know, the percentages, and alcoholics are percentage players. There's more policemen than there are thieves. And I was arrested. Went in front of a man. The man gave me some time, a lot of time. Some juice got in, I got a release and came back to L.A. I never will forget, you know, I was put on probation, went to the first probation officer I ever went to, and I'll never forget when he said, you know, son, why do you steal? And I said, I like to steal. You know, I really never felt I was that complicated, just kind of earthy, you know. And you try to explain something like that to somebody that's never tried it. It's very difficult. You know, when you've hooked a man's car and you're driving away and he's running after you, you know, there is a feeling there that, you know, it's an exhilarating force that just kind of takes over. You sweat, you die, you live, and man, I get excited just talking about it right now. And that was the beginning of my problems. I'm sure this didn't have anything to do with alcoholism, but it kind of shows you that I'm a guy with an attitude problem. I'm looking for the fantasy land out there. And the fantasy land walked in about 1941. It was an Easter week in L.A. And Easter week in L.A., why, everybody went out and we went to the beach cities. And they're still doing it, and we did it then. We go down to Balboa Beach. Balboa, the old rendezvous ballroom, Stan Kenton and Padre beer. That's where I got it going. Boy, we drink that old Padre, get a little buzz on, go in the dance hall and dance with them dollies and act 4 times drunker than what we were, and, you know, breathe on the girls, or, you know, you got to let them... Young high roller coming into Balboa. Had a lot of fun. In the beginning, I'm not an alcoholic. I had fun, didn't get in trouble. I just moved on down the road, kind of worked at it. I moved out of Padre beer, shot into that Rainier Ale. From the Rainier Ale, I went into whiskey. And when I got to whiskey, I found the greatest thing made since money and girls. Because whiskey gets you downtown. Right now, man, that's what I like about it. And I'm a guy who wants to be downtown, not in a little while, right now. And I broke in on 10 high, and that shows the dedication right there. That 10 high is rotten whiskey. Man, that stuff burned going and coming and ran out my nose and made my eyes water, but I hung in, and I think that's important. You're going to be an alcoholic, you don't give up because you throw up once in a while. No, you just stay in there, boy, yeah. And the day comes when you can drink a pint of whiskey and not heave, and you feel like you've graduated into the, yeah. And one thing about 10 hard, the economics of it are great. When you throw it up, you don't lose much. You know? It was dirt cheap, that stuff. Well, that was the beginning. I started to suffer a few blackouts, and then it was January 1942, and I'm in the Navy. And I'm not in the Navy because I'm a patriot. I'm in the Navy because they got the heat on again. The probation department gave me the alternate choice. He says, you can go to jail or go in the service. So I'd never been in the service, so I went there. And it was a bad deal. Another one of my bad decisions. When I got in the Navy, all the enemies I had in L.A. had joined the Navy the same day I did. Yeah. They started dictating a lot of silly policies, and so I just went about my business. I did what I damn well pleased, and consequently had, in the first year I was in, I had a deck, a summary, a general court-martial. I had 11 and a half months in a Navy brig off a general court. I had 60, 70 days solitary confinement on bread and water for some other miscellaneous things. I had a few captain's masts and other things that are important, but all directly due to booze. My discharge came up on Christmas Eve in 1945. I came out of the service, and I am alcoholic. I have crossed the invisible line. I'm looking for the answer living out there in a quart of whiskey, and I can't find it. My entire life revolves around booze. Can't live with it and can't live without it and don't want to. Won't go anywhere where there's not booze around. If I got to go to some function and there's not anything to drink, I take something along because I just don't want to be where it isn't. After I have a dozen drinks, why, I've got no control over my destiny. But I kept trying to get the handle on it, trying to find a way to control it where I wouldn't hurt myself any longer. In 1946, I had the opportunity to hear about this program, Alcoholics Anonymous. God moving in his strange and mysterious ways, and no matter what you do or you don't do, it's going to work out that way anyway. In 1946, I made a profound statement to myself. I said, I ain't getting drunk in Pasadena again, ever. Because Pasadena is a rotten town, and they got rotten cops, and they got a judge that hates me, and I got a year suspended on a 3-year probation, and I am not going back and get drunk in Pasadena. Well, you know what happens. 2 or 3 months go by, and it got to going pretty good, and I couldn't stand it, you know. I'm sitting down in a gin mill one night in the beach city about 70 miles away, and while I'm drinking, I committed the cardinal sin. I began to think. And an alcoholic should never do that. He should either think or drink, but never get them both going at the same time. Oh, no. Because these crazy things happen. I got to thinking about that rotten judge and that lousy town. It's a free country. I'm a veteran, and on and on. And with that giant rationale, there's nothing left to do but to drive some 70 miles back to the city of Pasadena. Went down to a joint called the Green Terrace. I got a big load on, closed that place, met a buddy of mine. We're heading out. Going to some after-hours joint, and I couldn't have got, a half a mile, and the car made a left turn in front of me, and I'm so drunk I can't see it. I hit it, and I ran from the scene of the accident, and when I woke up, I was in my usual position. I was in jail in Pasadena. Yeah, and they come and got me, and they took me down in front of the man, and the man said a 501 felony, drunk driving, hit and run, bodily injury involved, and I have no choice but to send you to jail. And in the city jail, I shared a cell with a man who was going to Alcoholics Anonymous. God moves in strange ways, huh? The seed was planted. Back to a town I swore to God I'd never come back to again. To hit a car, to end up in jail, to share this cell with this man who's going to AA. One guy out of 200, 250 guys is getting out of the bucket once a week to go to these meetings, and that's my cell partner. That's the guy that planted the seed. He said, I'll take you to a meeting. I'll fix it up. Let you know you can go. And I told him, why? It's fine. You and your brothers are rotten drinkers. You never heard, you can't handle that stuff. But my case is altogether different, or words to that effect. I said, I'm no alcoholic. I'm just having a run of bad luck, and I'm too young. I said, what the hell, when I get to be your age, buddy, you're 36. You got to face it, You're really on the backside of the hill, and you don't have much to contribute out there, and I'm willing to surrender to some silly thing like AA, but no, I don't want any part of this program. What he didn't know and what I didn't know, but the old man upstairs, he knows all about it. That seed was there, and as I trudged that road for another 8.5 years, why, periodically in that 8.5 years, I used to wonder what the hell ever happened to Sullivan. Is he still going to that AA thing out there? What's he doing now? And then it was February of 1954, and I'm getting up off of the floor, and I'm walking in, and I'm picking up a telephone, and I'm calling the central office in Los Angeles, and I'm trying to find a guy named Sullivan that I'd shared a jail cell with, and I couldn't find him. And I'd love to tell you that we got relocated and we got together, and everybody lived happily ever after, but he was one of those guys couldn't cut it. He had 3 years approximately on the program, and he decided he had to go out and drink a little whiskey. And he went back out there, and he was in and out and in and out. And then one night, while on a hell of a tear, he had an internal hemorrhage, and he bled to death, and they put him down. And he went out hard with the heat on, the screws down, and he had to justify his existence to the bitter end, and it was very sad. Because he is the first sponsor, I suppose, that I ever had. But they tell us in the AA book, the ultimate end is the gates of insanity or death or surrender. And he found that he just couldn't surrender to this program. Well, in that 8.5 years, I got lucky there for a while. First 3 years that after I left jail, I went to work for one of the largest construction firms in the world in the concrete pipe business. I stayed with these folks 11 years. And in that period that I was with them, I was at the right place at the right time. The jobs got bigger and better. Money got good. I had a little setback about that time. I met a red-headed Irish woman that you met last night. I really don't need to be here. She told it all. But we decided, we'd turn the trick and get married. And she had this violent temper, rotten disposition, yelled at me all the time, and never recognized what a sensitive person I was. The alcoholics that are here today, you recognize that you are very sensitive. You're out a couple of days, you've been gone, and you've been very busy. Built a lot of corporations out there and put a lot of deals together, and so when you come home, you're tired because you've expended a lot of energy, a little drunky too, but when you walk in the house, you'd like a little love, affection, and understanding. But not around the house I live in. Oh, no, I walk through the door and the drunkometer's there. From 20 feet she smells me, you're drunk again. And she hasn't, as I said, never smelled my breath. I was always dumbfounded about, how does she know? I would call her on the phone and she'd say, you're drinking, aren't you? I would get paranoid. I'd jump out of the phone booth and I'd look around, She's got people following me out here, I got to the point where I was sneaking out of the back door of them saloons, to lose the guys that I thought was following me out there. Well, this was quite a routine and never changed. I walk in, she'd say, you're drunk again? I'd say, who, me? Like 30 guys are with you. And she'd say, yeah, you. And then I'd hit her with a big one. I'd say, do you know who you're talking to? And in case she didn't, I would introduce myself, you see. That's a favorite pastime of most alcoholics, isn't it? I'm Old Norm, baby. That's who the hell I am, and don't you ever forget it. Because every loving thing you got, I got you. The house you're living in, the food you're eating, the clothes you're wearing. And she's hysterical because she knows the deal. Being foreclosed out of the house, the kids got to go for water on the post toasties because you can't make the milk bill anymore. Her wardrobe, she's standing in it right there, But you want to let her know. And I tried to impress her that I was Old Norm. And then she would mimic me as only way them Irish women can do it. I'm Old Norm, that's who I am, ha ha ha. That's very degrading, isn't it? Sometimes that happens when you got your best friend with you. That's your new business partner. You met him in the bar last night and you've invited him home, right? And the reason he's coming home with you is, hell, he don't want to go home alone either, You got the security in numbers standing there, and I'm saying, you embarrassed me in front of my best friend. And I couldn't think of his name, And then she'd tell me what I could do with old best friend. And I'd tell her, you've gone too far, and I'm leaving, and she'd accommodate me by throwing my clothes out. Then you got to pick the clothes up to save face, you got to pack up your car. The old clothes packing alky is a joy to the neighbors. It's a diversion from Gunsmoke on Saturday night. You can watch the old Alpi staggering around, loading up his car, sitting in his car, honking his horn, honk, 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 telling the neighbors, I'm going. Yet the alcoholic wonders how people knows he drinks, you see. And never to come home again. Zoom, I'm gone. 2 days later, zip, here I come again, You get tired of sleeping in the car, you tap out. Driving home with a flat tire. They call them rim drivers in AA, That old tire's flopping and popping in there, the sparks are flying off of the rim, people are shooting out of the house, getting the kids out of the way, and the old alky coming in, turns the car into the driveway, up on the lawn, through the hedge, opens the door, and falls out. Here, a couple of months ago, my home group, a guy was talking about laying in them hedges. God, they are a detriment to alcoholics, I'll tell you that. We were doing a pipeline job, and I remember falling in this hedge. It was either in Phoenix or Big Spring, I can't remember. And I'm laying in this hedge, and I can't get out. I'm drunker than hell, and I can't get up. But, I think it was a privet. They stick all in you, And I'm trying to get out of that hedge, and I'm thinking I'm going to die in the hedge, I just couldn't get out. And then you just kind of pass out and get up, and then you get out of the hedge. And then it would occur one more time if anybody had saw me. Because once again, I'm deeply concerned about my reputation. But you can see, under these circumstances that I lived under, I did very little drinking around the house. I'm not a home drinker. I'll be the first to agree that a home drinker is a low overhead drinker. You keep the overhead down, but you don't get the coverage. You sacrifice the overhead for the coverage. You know, who the hell's around the house to tell how good you are? Her. And her don't believe it, does she? No. You're a bar drinker, you can see a lot of people let them know how good you are. I like them joints. I like the dark lights and the rotten music. I enjoyed the intellectual giants that I met there. I like solving the problems of the world. I like sitting there and staring at myself in the mirror. They put mirrors in bars so that alcoholics can sit there and make funny faces. You know, you go over there. You kind of get that Maybelline wide-eyed look, kind of, you devil, you. Oh, yeah, there you are. Hey, you're a killer and a lover tonight. That's what you are. You're well-built. You got a $30 smiling Frankie Gordon suit on. You got 50 cents worth of whiskey all on the front of you. A little chilly, too, I don't know what it is about chili that attracts alcoholics, but they love it. I did. You got chili all over, Smell bad, can't talk, mumbled a lot. I used to drink myself up where can't even order a drink. Then I just kind of slowly slide off the bar stool onto the floor. Bartender 86s you. Or you go to the men's room, it's a pay toilet, and you can't get in because you haven't got any money. So you got to slide under the door, right? I bet there's some old door sliders here. Yeah. Then you got to slide out again, huh? Hell, I never knew till I got to AA. Once you got in, all you had to do was turn the handle and walk out, Isn't that incredible? The education you get in AA, yeah. Because it's degrading coming out from under that door and people are, what are you doing down there, And I'm a car loser, man. I lost them cars all over. It's embarrassing, calling some friend and asking him, have you seen my car anywhere? Yeah. And your friend says, you must be kidding. Your car weighs 4,000 pounds, Norm. How did you lose it? And I always wanted to tell him how easy it was because I did it a lot. I think one of the highlights of my life was the nights that I'd find my car. It was kind of a spiritual experience, isn't it? So you're walking down the street, there it is! Oh, Jesus! You're overwhelmed with joy. It hasn't been impounded. You open the door, get in, go to bed, right? I'm a car sleeper. I think that's the trouble with my neck now. It's all them years with your head screwed up under the armrest. The door handle in your ear, huh? You ever wake up about 4 in the morning, you're deathly ill, and you think your window's down, but it's up? You throw up right into your window. Knock the hell out of your head. Then I'd always roll the window down. Squish, 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 down she comes, yeah. If there's any new people here this afternoon, you want to give this a lot of thought, because you got to give all that up when you come to AA, yeah. That's a hell of a sacrifice we're going to ask you to make. And I trudged on down that road, looking for the answer to living out there in that whiskey, year after year, night after night. And as I trudged that road, the whiskey got every loving thing I owned, and anything to me. Little by little, it grinds it out. The wheels of alcoholism grind very slow, but very fine, and all you got to do is give it enough time, and it's going to get every loving thing you got that means anything to you, you see. I recall a day very vividly when the old man called me into the office. I'd just finished up a job in down at Big Spring. We had a hell of a pipeline there, went from Odessa to Big Spring, 90-mile run, and job went good, and the company made a lot of money, and then I made an ass of myself. I was making a whiskey run, it was the day after Thanksgiving, and I made Odessa because it's legal whiskey, and I picked up a case, and I opened a jug, and I got half of it down before I ever got back into Big Spring, and I got a full load on, and I got a company roadmaster, and I got my foot on the carburetor. I'm the typical alcoholic. You had 2 speeds. It was either stopped or going full bore out there, And I got that highway patrol, coming in behind me, and the next thing I know, the highway patrol forced me off of the road and pulled me out of the car, and I made some smart remarks, and they did a few things, and I ended up in the can there in Big Spring, and I was there 3 days, and then I got a release, and they took me down to Midland, put me on a plane, and sent me on back to L.A. They also called the corporation and said, we don't need people like him in West Texas any longer. And the old man called me in the office, and he recited the things. And he also told me, he says, you've been drinking, you drink too much, you don't handle it, and I've been telling you this for a long time. You're destroying yourself and your family, and the company is getting into trouble because of you, and you're expensive as hell. The fines we pay, the bail bonds we got to go to, the expense accounts we've got to read, and we can't tolerate it. We'll never send you out on a job again out of this state. No more. We'll send people out of these jobs half as good as you think you are. He said, at least we can depend on them. We can no longer depend upon you. And I have lost the respect now of the people I worked with and did business with. That day as I stand there, I want to reach over and I want to grab him right by the throat and I want to say to him, who the hell do you think you're talking to, huh? You Johnny come lately? That corporation, the old Slavs, had sold out in '51 to an Eastern corporation. They'd pulled in. This guy'd been around a couple of years. And I want to tell him, who do you think you are? I'm the guy that makes it go out there. I'm the guy that drives the lines out there. I'm the one that brings and does it. I'm the guy that's got it here. Who the hell are you talking to me? And that's what I want to tell him. And I want to tell him you've gone too far, buddy, because I'm going to quit your rotten company. And I'm going to go out and open my own company, and I'm going to run you out of business, and you're going to have to come down to see me for a job. And you're going to walk in my office, and I'm going to say, I remember you, get the hell out of here, yeah. And then you know what happened next? I had another drink, and I dreamed another dream, and I slid off another bar stool. That's what I did. I did nothing. I stood there, and I let the gall choke in my throat. Because I had to have that job. I had to have that money. I had that heat on out there, and I just couldn't tolerate it. I had to have it. But I thought to myself, next time's going to be different. Next time you'll not get away with this. The respect went. And then one day I pulled a car into the house, and it's altogether different. I was always able to go through that third act, standing there with the tears coming down, going, baby, Jesus, give me a break. Don't throw me out. I got a hell of a deal. Think of the kids. I'm going down to see the priest, take another pledge. Yeah, I'm going down to see that old doctor you're telling me about. I'm going to go see the psychiatrist, get FICO'd or whatever they do down there. That's what I'm going to do for you, baby. Hell yeah. And I'd scheme, and the Alki's a schemer. And I'd get in, and as soon as I get in, I start scheming to get back out again. Well, finally the day comes when they can't tolerate it any longer, and they got to bust you out. They got to put you out. She says, you're a drunken bum. You'll never live to be 35 years old. You're drinking yourself to death. She says, hell, I'll spend 8 years sitting here looking through the front room window waiting to see your car come home night after night after night. And when you don't come home, hell, I'd die. I hear a siren scream in the streets, I die. Yeah, I think the cops got you. This time they find you dead in the street, Norm, you aren't coming home no more. And I can't tolerate it. It's necessary for you to get out of my life. I've called the attorney, the separate maintenance, the restraining order, the divorce. It's all going through. Get out! Well, there are people who'll stick around for long periods of time. 20 years, 25, 30 years, always putting up with this crap, huh? Waiting for this jackass to straighten out. 25 years watching him flop in and out of the house. 25 years of lying and promises he tries to get a hold of and he can't make. 25 years of telling friends and relations, don't come over, Norm's got the flu. He flew right under the bed, that's what he flew. Hell, I wouldn't do it 20 days, let alone 20 years, no. But there are people that'll tolerate it, that'll do it and hang in. God gives them a lot of strength, doesn't he? Kind of a left-handed thing he hands down. What a beautiful thing it is when a woman and his man come to the meetings and they come together for the first time. And they walk through the door and the guy's all hung out and sick. And the woman, you look at her and she's, if it's a woman, and she's sick too, and in her eyes is a story. And it says, this jackass has tried everything in the world. This ain't going to work either. But we'll try it. And then you see the same couple maybe 3-4 months later walking through the same door. And the guy, he's sharped out a little bit now. Looks pretty good, and his eyes a little clear. And the woman, she's changed too, and in her eyes is a story, and it says, you know something? I've been waiting 25 years for this to happen, and finally it's happened. And today we're happier than we've ever been in our life, and it's all made possible through a unique miracle that you and I here choose to call Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'd love to tell you that's the way that it's always going to be, that it's going to go down the road this way, from person to person, but it isn't necessarily true, you see. For all we have to offer here in AA is sobriety and a way of life, and whatever you are, you're going to be better at. We've never guaranteed a single soul that he'll make a ton of scratch or drive a big iron or live in a big old house on a hill or his woman's ever going to let him back in again. That isn't what we have to offer. It could come to pass, but that isn't what we have to offer. Sobriety and a way of life, and whatever you are, buddy, you'll be better at, and the equipment to stand out there and to be counted like everybody else. That's what Alcoholics Anonymous is all about. Well, when do you get down to that end of that road where you got to totally surrender to something? When do you surrender to this program? It's a psychological second in each and every alcoholic's life when he's totally sick and tired of being sick and tired. And he reaches that level at different times. But I don't believe that an alcoholic ever reached that level that still owned his self-respect. I think that man's got to walk in and say, you've no longer, can have it. You've abused the privilege of owning it. We've got to take it away. And they take away the respect of yourself. And you stand there in front of the mirror one day and you can't stand to look at you because you know. That remorse is grinding you to death inside. You know you can kid every man jack in town out there, but that's no longer important, what people know about you. But what you as an individual or I know about ourselves gets to be paramount. And it kind of gets to the point that you can't tolerate you as an individual any longer, and you make some point of surrender. And I want to believe that that surrender date came in February of 1954. I just couldn't cut it out there anymore. That grind and that remorse inside was tearing me alive. Physically, I'm not in such bad shape. I'm 29, I'm doing outside work, I'm construction, but up here and in here. And I made a decision, a God-given decision. It wasn't me that made it, it was him that made it. He directed me to a telephone of which I picked up, and I called the central office in Los Angeles, and I talked to a man, and the man says, you got a drinking problem. I said, I can do. He said, you want to do something about it? I said, I think I do. And he said, here's some numbers, call them, and I did. And I got a hold of the guy, and the guy came to my house, and he put it out to me, and he told me, and this is the way it is, buddy. Alcoholics Anonymous is for people who want it, and you got to want it. And if you don't want it as bad as you wanted the whiskey, then you're premature. You went to any length to get that whiskey, and you got to go to any length to get this program, and you need us, and we don't need you, and don't you ever forget that. And he said, if you think I'm going to pick you up and take you to meetings, you're crazy. You want it, you come and get it. You got a car, you drive. You got a car, what the hell are you doing in AA? Yeah. People that own cars and watches, by God, you got something to sell and buy more whiskey, why, you're early. But he said, here the last 2 or 3 years, why, we softened up a great deal. We've been taking chances on guys like you, yeah. And some of you are working out. And he said, I'm perfectly willing to meet you at 3 meetings. And after 3 meetings, why, you make a decision whether you want it or you don't. He said, I'll be down at the Temple City meeting tonight. The old Temple City meeting met down in a Rosemead town. And boy, I could hardly wait to get in that car that night because I wanted to get down to that meeting. I went there in spite of him and in spite of me. Once again, it's a God-directed thing. I want to show this guy, man, I got a car. I wanted to show it to him so bad I wanted to hit him with it. That's what I wanted to do. He's 18, 20 years older than I am. We got quite a differential in age there. And I got down to that meeting, and I pulled into that parking lot, and my God, he was standing there. And I was overwhelmed. And I thought, my God, he is here. Because I really believed that he was putting me on, and he wasn't going to be there, but he was there. He walked up to the car, and he opened the door, and he put his arm around me. And I loved him from that day, and the day he died. My sponsor was a very controversial individual. Yeah. No middle road. You either hated him or you loved him. Many guys made the program in spite of him. Many guys made it because they loved him. He carried the message to hundreds and thousands of people. He was a tremendous speaker in Alcoholics Anonymous. He did a tremendous job on the 12-step call on the people out there that were hurting too. And he had a tremendous percentage with the people that he called on. A very unique individual. His own worst enemy, as all of us are. He found it very difficult to exercise any tolerance, to let another man live his life the way he wants to live it, not the way that I want him to live it. He found it very difficult to make that transformation through the entire book of AA. To move into chapter 6 and grab that chapter 6 and surrender to it and do all the things that are necessary in it. He refused to turn his will and his life over to the care of anybody. And so the resentments started to form until the resentments ate him alive, until one day he had a decision to make. That he was going to move out the resentments and turn his will and life, or he was going to drink a little whiskey. And he decided he'd drink a little whiskey out there. And he stayed out there for almost 12 years trying to make it back in. But his ego that we as alcoholics seem to possess wouldn't allow it. You see, he'd come in and he couldn't forget that he was the man who had carried the message, who had done the things, and he would go back out. And then one day he had a heart attack, and he surrendered, and he came in, and he had 1.5 years of sobriety, and then he died. And we had a lot of conversation, he and I, a lot of things that were necessary, and a lot of things that weren't so very necessary. And as it turned out, he was the greatest sponsor in the world because he's the guy that took the time to tell me about a program to meet me at these meetings. He's the guy that took me into that old Temple City meeting. Wealthy group, very wealthy group. We had 60, 70 of the finest drunks ever came out of San Gabriel Valley. We had so much money in that group, we had donuts before and after the meeting. Can you believe that? That's the way you knew I was a well-heeled group or not, by the number of donuts they had. And let me tell you, we had some red jelly donuts too. And they're very expensive. But we saved those specifically for new people. And you see a new guy coming through the door and he's all green and hung out. And the Red Jelly Donut Committee would slide right up on him, you know. Glad to have you here. You're new, aren't you? I bet you like a cup of coffee. How about a donut? Ha ha! No, Jesus, no, I don't want a donut. Did you ever look at a red jelly donut when you got a hangover? It looks like something you left in the street last night. You know, Jesus, I don't want you rotten donut. And they all stand around, them alkies, all stand around in groups, talking at the same time about different things. Yeah, and you're listening to the story, and about the time a guy gets to the punchline, zip, some guy interrupts him. You know, when you're new, you hear that keep coming back, you think that's why. I'll hear the end of some of these stories, you know. Alcoholics are the rudest people in the world, you know. Excuse me, just keep going right in, he goes. And then the meeting began. And the guy stood up in front of the meeting that night, and he told everybody what a jackass he was. They were hysterical over the fact that guys go to jail all the time. He's talking about things I've been hiding all my life. Talking about drinking something called Jamaica ginger. Give him the Jake leg. Put him in a hospital for about 3 months, and boy, they thought that was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. And my sponsor's a nudger. They all are. Sit there. Did you hear that? Hear that? Hear that? Huh? You know, if he isn't doing it, your wife is. Listen to that, Harry. That's you right there. Yeah. They all think you're deaf. Hell, you're in the front row there. And you're hearing the whole thing. And I'm listening to this guy tell all that balderdash, and I thought, what am I doing? I knew that I was too young to be an alcoholic. I ain't that bad. No, for crying out loud. That guy been in 70, 80 jails. Drank that Jamaica ginger. Man, I've only been in 25 jails at the outside. And I drank a little Vitalis, Aquavelva, 1 time in my life. How can you qualify? I got no story, really. But the man makes a big statement that night, and he took it right out of that book. He said, man, it don't make any difference who you are or where you came from. How much you drink or where you drank it. It's what it's doing to you. And if it's tearing up any part of your life, you don't have to go any farther. And when he said that, I thought, yeah, that's tearing the hell out of my life. I'm not so sure I want to quit drinking, but God, I'm so tired of hurting myself I could just spit. And I thought, by God, there's a chance maybe that I can cut it. If he can do it, maybe I can do it. He stood there in front of that meeting that night with 9.5 years of sobriety. He was a street man out of L.A. I savvied them street people. This guy come from a tougher section of the street than I did, much, much tougher. And when he says he's crawling out, or words to that effect, he crawled out to get his AA. And he stood there that night, not that street man that he professed to be, but a man among men who was clean, who was happy, who was sharp, whose eyes were clear, who laughed a great deal, who had on a set of threads that I bet cost him $150. And I thought, man, if he didn't get nothing else out of AA, didn't he get a set of drapes? That is all right, yeah. I'll just hang around a while. Maybe they got another issue coming through, you know. I'm impressed with the thing that I see. And Alcoholics Anonymous is a program of example, is it not? You like what you see. You're going to come back to see a little more and get a little more of what he's got. That old cliche that I was there hundreds and hundreds of times, what he is speaks so loud I cannot hear a word he says. By example stood the man. And that man came back a long way. He had had insurmountable problems. His woman had divorced him and remarried. His kids, they all hated him. But one day a miracle came to pass. He bought the package of the program, and his kids came down to see him. And they learned to like him, to respect him and love him. And if I'd have looked around, I'd have seen it all. I'd have seen them big tough AA guys sitting there in that meeting and crying. You know, the tears are coming down, and they're crying for the joy of it all. And the story was told, and I've heard it hundreds and hundreds of times since, that they would laugh because they were miserable, and they cried because they were happy, and they called it Alcoholics Anonymous. Maybe oversimplification, but that's the program. It's the only program I got. I find that through the laughter of AA, it was a release. I was able to clear out the wreckage of my past through the laughter I found. And I didn't laugh easy. I'm like everybody that come in, huh? What's there to laugh about? Jeez, you're sitting there doing everybody's laughing. I tell them, Spot, you're going to laugh. No, if you had my trouble, you wouldn't laugh either. Man, I got so much heat on out there in the street you wouldn't believe. I owe money all over town. They're foreclosing me out of that house. The finance company wants my car. My woman's going to get that attorney, and he's going to get all over me. That boss man's trying to fire me. Oh, God, have you had my trouble? And I sat there, but the laughter of this program, it permeates you. You know, you can sleep in a meeting. It comes in anyway. Then before I knew it, I'm sitting there going, oh, good, I laughed. Don't ever tell my sponsor I laugh, whatever you do. But don't you know, once you begin, this contagious thing that we have here, it just overwhelms you, doesn't it, huh? And through the laughter of the program, I was able to release and start to clear out the wreckage of the past and move into the program and make the amends to the people out there that are still hurting, to get rid of the guilt, to the people that I have hurt out there, to get rid of that guilt, huh? That ounce of guilt. An alcoholic carries an ounce of guilt like it weighs 1,000 pounds, doesn't he? Nobody carries guilt like an alcoholic. I am guilty, guilty, guilty. Oh, God, yeah, But through the laughter, you see, I'm able to release that. I'm able to get it the hell out of there. I said, accept the things you can't change, Norm. And I couldn't change that for all the money in the world, for all the prayers in the world, for all the tears, or my right arm thrown in, because that's the way it is. And so I've got to release that, and you know and I know. It's tough enough to live today, isn't it? With today's merchandise, let alone trying to do something about yesterday you can't do a damn thing about, so you got to get it the hell out. I had to satisfy myself in my own head. I had to know, my God, nobody goes forever. Someday they're going to hang me out to dry, and when they do, I'll make the shot, and I'll check in. And I'll say, what do you say, baby? I'm sure sorry for all the crap and the trouble I caused you before, but it got a hell of a lot better after you left, because I met a group of people, and they call themselves Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's not a rationalization. That's just the way it's got to be. It's wreckage that I got to get it out. Because without clearing of this, I couldn't proceed down through the program, I don't believe, make that giant step, start giving and quit taking. And giving is very difficult for people like me, because I'm not a giver, I'm a taker. I'm a taker of things and a user of people. I'm a loser. All takers are losers. You see, I thought I had the key to happiness out there. Hell, I never had the keychain. I never knew what it was all about to truly give, and I heard that from the inception of the program. And you know, I almost kicked that program all out. I almost never got the opportunity to give anything to anybody. The second meeting I went to was in that Pasadena. Where the hell would I go? Yeah, naturally, I go to that Pasadena meeting. The old-timers meeting there in Pasadena. I had to be sober 10 years to read the steps. The speaker that night at my second meeting had been sober 137 years, yeah. Old-timers stood up there talking, yeah. When he talked, he always showed a picture of himself. Great big blown-up mugshot taken on when he's doing time in the county jail. And the point that he tried to get across was, look at me when I was drinking. Look at me now. I looked at that picture, I looked at old Artie, and I thought, hell, he looked better drunk, that guy, yeah. And I went out the next day and I got a pony and I took a long drag and I threw it away. And from that day to this, it hasn't been necessary to take that drink, you see. It was kind of a move forward, I suppose. And then eventually I was able to get into that giving, go out there and give a little. My sponsor kept harping on it. He says, hell, Norm, there's a place for everybody. Pick up the ashtrays, do a good job, we'll let you pick up the coffee cups. From there, we'll put, you do a good job, why, hell, we'll put you on the coffee detail. And if you're politically inclined, we'll run you for secretary and guarantee you the job. That's the kind of guy we are. You can even go on from there. We'll send you to general service, central service, institutional work. Hell, Norm, there's places for everybody. Above all, though, he said, never quit making on the call of the guy that's still hurting out there. Getting out there and talking to that man and giving a little of you to him. And if he's one of the guys that comes to the meetings and he starts to grow, one day he gets a year in and he's standing up there in front of the podium and they give him a birthday cake and he blows a candle out and he looks out there in the audience and he says, and there's my sponsor there, that's Charlie. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here. And if you're the Charlie he's talking about, as humble as we alcoholics are, you may say to yourself, yeah, I guess I did help him a little bit. Yeah, I guess I did kind of give him a leg up out there. And the beauty of it is that now he'll be able to go out and help another guy. And when he does, he's not only going to give a little of himself, but he's going to give a little of me to that next guy. And so you and I and him and they and us and walk on down this street, won't we, from here to eternity, giving a little of ourselves to other people to get in another day. And to me, that's what Alcoholics Anonymous is all about. Truly an uncomplicated program. It's just a given thing. And I'd love to tell you that if you're willing to give, you knew that every day is going to turn out to be a holiday and every meal is going to be a banquet. And I wish I could tell you, but that isn't what it is. They say you're going to take the good days, man. You take them bad days, them rotten days, them heartbreaking days. You stand there, Norm, you be counted. You've got the book and you've got the people and you've got the program. You don't crowd a poor mouth. No, you stand in. But those are tough days. Gotta hate them. 1962 was the worst. Oh, God, that was a terrible year. 1962, and I'm 8 years sober. And it was just one of those years. I couldn't put the thing together. Got myself involved with some people. You know, I'm financially, job-wise, and I felt, you know, I'm uptown. I'm down there with the high rollers. I know the streets. But I got involved with the people from the inner city. Yeah, the high roller's high roller. Yeah, 1962, let me tell you, they ate my lunch out there, yeah. Financially, I'm in the worst shape in my life. Everything I touched turned to pucky. You know the kind of year. I can't hit a lick. And then I got a bad program going before you know it. And then before you know it, I got an honest desire to take a drink. I got that Arab thirst. I can taste that whiskey going down. Yeah. And then before you know it, why, there's more heartbreak piled on top of heartbreak. I'm there at St. Luke's Hospital, and the doctor says, and it happened. I said, you didn't, it wouldn't, it couldn't. Not to me, that happens to other guys. But it did. And so the next thing you know, I'm in a gin mill. And the bartender says, what would you like? I said, a double. You know, there it is. And but for the grace of God that looks after damn fools and drunks and people trying to cut the program, I didn't reach out. He let me remember the essential thing the program has taught me, who the hell I am and where I came from and what it took to bring me to that point in my life. He says, sitting around and crying the poor mouth, Norm, why the hell don't you remember where you were? Why don't you remember 1946 when you creamed that car and thought you killed 4 people? Why don't you remember laying in that tank down there in Big Springs and the cockroaches are running all over your head? Why don't you remember the people that cried, Norm? You directly affect the lives of a minimum of 20 people when you come here and find a better way to live. In my life, there's 20 multiplied by 20. I've either hurt, used, or abused, or wrecked through the efforts of my drinking. Remember who the heck you are and what you got. And remember to thank him for what you have and what he didn't give you. Thank him, Norm. So one more day and one more time, I'd like to say thank you very much. Thank you for the 25 years you let me walk out there on the sunny side of the street. Hell, I know guys that died, never saw 25 days. They went out hard with that heat on and the screws down. They justified their existence to the bitter end, so Christ, I'm overpaid. I haven't had to justify my existence out there to nobody for a hell of a long time. When I walk on the street out there, I am respected by myself. I'm respected by people. I do a job. I go home at night to a house. I live in a house, and in the house is a woman, a red-headed Irish woman's glad I'm coming in. She respects me most of the time. Nobody cries in that joint today because the old man is drunk and tearing it up. I heard a kid of mine scream at me for years. For me to get their mother, huh? I watched them go from small bandits into big ones, and I've sent them to schools, and I've taken my girls downtown, and I bought them their first pair of high-heeled shoes, and I've stood there and watched them make the transition from the chickens of my life to the women of my life, and I've cried for the joy of it. And I see all these jerky jackasses come around the house, take them out, you know. And I walked them down the aisle, I'll let you know, too. Yeah, and I've cried every foot of the way. And I've looked out there and seen my AA buddies in the church, and then them Alki buddies of mine are all crying, too. Them Alki guys cry better than anybody. You know, they can cry, you know. Gotta take her on down to the altar, and I give her to this jackass, and man, I really cry now, yeah. But I'm very fortunate, you see, because all my son-in-laws all work and they all take baths, so you gotta count your blessing, you know. I'm ahead of the deal. And I've been woken in the middle of the night with phone calls to tell me I'm a grandfather one more time. And I could go on and tell you the miracles this program has brought me. And the things that I have seen and the things that I have felt, but there's never adequate words. How the hell can I tell you, really tell you, that every loving thing I've got or will ever be in my entire life is going to be because of the program? I can never find the proper words. I can only tell you, buddy, if you knew. It's been a hell of a walk from the L.A. County Jail to the point that I stand today. And but for the grace of God, Alcoholics Anonymous, and friends like you, I could have missed it all. Thanks a man. God bless you.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.